The world is full of stories, and from time to time, they permit themselves to be told.
I am back.
And welcome to another Apogee live stream. My name is Trisha Hirschberger. I normally do on-camera hosting, mostly talking about tech and video games and fandom entertainment, so I am very happy and honored to be right here with you guys week to week, so welcome. Today, I've got a couple big announcements right up front. We're gonna play some games. We've got a cool interview coming up. But Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition is now available on PC via Steam and GOG with a 20% discount. Huzzah! It's also coming to consoles soon, later this year, so keep that in mind. Also, did you know, to those of you in chat, did you know that Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition was released on the same day as Rise of the Triad Remake in 2013? I love that we're keeping that the same. It's a little homage to the past, if you will. And speaking of anniversaries, did you know that this week we'll be celebrating the 30th birthday of Biomenace, which was developed and published by Apogee in 1993. Snake Logan, never stop rocking that glorious mullet. We'll be diving into Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition and eat lead. It's gonna be awesome. Then we will be chatting with David Craddock, the writer, producer, and director of FPS first-person shooter, The Definitive Documentary. Now that documentary features Apogee's founder, Scott Miller, as well as other industry icons, and dives into the history of how the genre came to be and how it came to evolve. So right now, we're going to kick things off with some gameplay, like I alluded to earlier. Let's dive into Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition. I'm going to go new game. The hunt begins as you investigate suspicious signs of cult activity somewhere in the Gulf of Santa Catalina. Here we go. All right, I'm going to play as Lorelei today. And I'm going to play on easy. Laugh at me all you want. But even though I grew up playing retro FPSs, I am not great at them. I have never been great at them. So I know where my skill set lies, and it's strategy and puzzle games. But here we are. I still like to play them because they're fun, even though I'm not super great at them. The remaster minds at Night Dive Studios, along with the Madmen at New Blood, present Apogee Software's timeless cult classic, FPS Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition. That's what we're playing today. I do love that it has both 4K and ultra-wide resolution support, in case you weren't sure. But I feel like a lot of you have probably checked this out. I know we played it on stream before. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay. Oh, there. I was gonna say I know there's bad guys here somewhere. Get out of here! What are you, Boromir? Knock it off! All right. I swear we can survive the first room. All right, and I think yes. Let's go in here. Boom! I got an extra pistol. That would have been more helpful to have just a moment ago. Going down, home slice. Nope, I went down. I burned myself to death on a column, and we just started out. All right, well, you know. I in here. I didn't even get to use this beautiful bazooka before. Did I even explode anybody with that? Get that guy! What? No! Okay. I know I'm wasting the homing right now, but on the rocket launcher, but it's fine. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else? Alright, we're moving through. I'm gonna switch here. This time I'm not gonna burn myself on the column. You live and you learn. I'm gonna go all the way through. Anybody over here? Wah! Oh, some goodies up here. Alright, I do want to go back, though, here, because we've got some goodies down here, too. Oh, I should probably switch. We're in close range. I apologize to anyone if you can hear the lawnmower in my backyard right now. Doing it live. Okay, let's get that. Bag the bazooka. Great. And whee! And we're up and over. Ah! You. No! Come on. Who else do we have here? I do want to get all the goodies. Whee! I did miss some of them. Alright, let's plan our... Come on. No! Plan the jump a little better. Well, I didn't, but I don't want to go off the edge of the map either. Let me do it from this side. See, I almost went off the edge there. It's like I kind of know my limits. How on earth am I supposed to get that? Ah! Nope, it's not happening. It's not happening. No, don't you dare. I want none of what you're selling. Okay. Now let's go. Oh, yeah. Anybody else? No? Ah! Give me that. I picked up an MP40. Do I want to go? Oh, this is where I was. That's fine. Let's keep moving. Anybody over here? He's right there! Oh, this is definitely not the gun I wanted for that. Okay. Let's not get... Ah! You know, if you scream at them like you're a vampire, I feel like that helps. Wait, what happened? Wait, what? How did I die there? I don't even know how I died. Would someone please explain to me how I died? That seemed wildly unfair. P.S. When I played retro FPSs as a kid, I would honestly have like nightmares about the face just getting bloodier in the corner and not knowing why. And it's good to know that that still sticks with me to this day. Okay. Whoop! I know there's at least one more friendo over here. Oh, that did not work. That's not how I wanted that to go. Where are you, friendo? Oh, he got squished by the column. Okay. Whoop! No! Ah, there's so many! Why are there so many? Get away! Get away. Great. Great, great. We'll go up here like we were before. I'm gonna get some of this stuff. There we go. I got more of the goodies that time at least. Ah, and I just shot the wall. No. Yes. Oh! Okay, well, I made it through here. Now where to? Inside here. Nope. Where did you jerks come from? Not fair. Unkind. Oh, no. I have one little bit of life left. That's it. Help! Hello! Hello, I need help! Nope. Didn't make it. Ludicrously unfair, if you will. Okay. Go in here and get that. Nope, missed. Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else shooting me around here? You are. Great. Moving forward. Swapping. Nope, not what I wanted to swap to. Yes, what I wanted to swap to. Got you. Oh, there's still another friend over there. Oh, that guy just got flung up. Hilarious. Hilarious. Come on. Aim. Aim. I'm the worst and you can all make fun of me. I apparently have completely forgotten how to shoot and can't hit anything that's right in front of me. Although I did appreciate the eyeball that exploded there. That was kind of nice. Alright, here we go. Whee! And we're up and over. Ah! Don't go off the map! No! Don't go off the map, I said, Trisha. I apparently don't know how to control anything in my life. P.S. For those of you who have not played Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition yet, there's restored characters and game content from the lost betas as well, which is nice. I'm gonna start all over. You're gonna get to see the title screen again. We're going back in. Maybe instead of Lorelei this time, I'll be Doug. Here we go. Trying again. I'm gonna go under here. Get that. Okay, those are our 4 guys in this room. I think we are... Oh, that's not where I expected that to go. It took a hard turn. Oh, someone got squishy. Oh no. Come on, get that guy out of my face. No! Okay, as long as I don't get burnt on these death columns, we should be alright. I picked up an MP40. No, thank you. Oh my god. I can't hit this person to save my life. Because I can't aim. My aim is... Oh, it's because it's on the dang steps. That's why I can't hit that person every time.
Please! Please!
Oh,
No,
really?
don't
Really?
shoot.
Nope. Nope. Okay. Don't trust them. Don't trust them when they say... they're giving up. It's not true. They don't surrender. They never surrender.
Over here!
Okay, let's not jump off the map this time, trying to get the goodies. How is that all the way up there? Ridiculous. Getting the goodies. Alright. Aim low with the MP40. That's what I've learned. That's what I'm gonna say in my gameplay. We do have... Oh, no! Someone's still shooting me. Come on, you turkey. Aim lower, aim lower, aim lower. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I don't need to go back there. We're alright. Anyone else over here? No? Let's change us to... I know someone's going to be far away in here. How'd you get back up? That person just appeared out of nowhere.
Outsider!
Nope. Okay, so many people. Let's switch. Yeah, baby. Oh, come on, really? Get him. Alright, now, instead of getting squished by pillars or whatever happened to me last time, moving through. spikes. Some more bad guys. Some more bad guys. Some more bad guys. Who else is shooting me? Oh, there was someone right behind me? The whole time? Nobody told me, child. I'm disappointed. Okay. I think we've now successfully cleaned out in here. We'll keep going. Nope. Where? How come they? Sometimes they're homing and sometimes they're not. Probably two different types of bazookas, and I'm just messing up. When in doubt, player error. When in doubt, player error. Okay. Alright. Did we clear out this area? I think we did. Oh no. There's some friends. Oh, so many friends. So many friends. Where's my... Oh no. Oh no. It's not what I... Where's my... Ah! Do I not have the rocket launcher anymore? Is there someone behind me again? Yes! Yes! There is! No. No, I say. I don't want any of what you're saying. Oh, you stinker. How do I get over here? Where am I supposed to go next? Am I supposed to, like, jump up there? This is the door I came in. Maybe I have to go this way. Oh, that looks like some armor, though. Get me in there! Asbestos armor. Oh, so itchy. Hilarious. Looks like I got 1, 2, 3, and then a pause. Can I get through there? Do I even want to get through there? Ah! Found it. Found where I was supposed to go. Woo! Oh yeah, I can destroy the environment. Let's get it. It does look like it wants me to go up here for something. Is there anything up there? Unless I wanted to go all the way across the top. That's how I go all the way across the top, huh? Alright, let's see what that's all about. Ooh, hello. Let's see what that's all about. Let's see if I can do the platforming challenge. Here we go. Come on back here. No, wait, it's that fast? Rude. Rude, I say, but I'm gonna try to make it happen. Oh, it's obviously lightning. Outside. Come on back. Come on back. No! Stinker. Alright, I'm not trying it again. It's not happening again. Hey, level completed though! No bonus, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Alright, here we go. Moving on to the next episode. For those of you who are playing Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition, know that a new episode created by New Blood Night Dive and Apogee is available now. And if you're not currently playing, I believe that you can use, let me just double check, command ROTT for Rise of the Triad in chat to snag the game with a 20% discount. That's, a little thank you for being here on the live stream today. We appreciate you. Oh, man, you don't appreciate you. Sneaking up on me. Bunch of fools. Look at, there's so many of them. There's so many of them, and they're so grateful that I need to stop to aim. They're so grateful for my poor FPS skills that I need to stop and aim. Because a moving target's much harder to hit. And while I know that, a moving player is also much harder to accurately hit. Okay, anybody else? Oh, a key. Hey, give me that. I got the gold key. Ah! No! No. I'm in this little maze. You! No, thank you. I could try to go up here again. A little platforming challenge for me. Nope. Nope. Okay. Did we clean up all in here? Touch plate triggered. A door opens. What? What? Let me in there. I want it. I'm gonna do it again. I saw it. Yeah. Give me that. You recovered a drunk missile. Alright, we're moving on with that. Oh! Did you see how many that had? Ah! No, sir. You're done. I ate some monk meal. Is this... That's a door. That's a door and you're a bad guy. Any other bad guys? What's that? I ate some monk meal. Switch turned on, a wall moves. Why is everything green? Why is it green? Ah! Oh guys, I'm gonna die. There's so much death here. Like, look at all that death. Just like the most amount of death. Why am I dying? Because it's green and it's poison? How do I get out of the green poison? Not real sure. I'm gonna go this way. Bad guys? I ate some priest porridge. What else do I have? More drunk missiles. Yes, that was amazing. Okay. No! And I'm dead. There it was. And I'm dead. Environmental. And I'm dead, friends. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna get some stuff. Gonna take out some dudes.
Over here.
Taking out some dudes. Keep moving. Keep moving. Find some better guns. Keep moving and find some better guns. Okay. Get this guy out of my face. So many dudes over here. So many dudes over here. But I need to go in there and get the key. So I did that. Now they all come chasing me in here because they know where I am. These skinny guns. Okay. Oh yeah, this is the trap door. Take out the dudes. Get the nicer gun. Okay. Step on that door. Get that gun. Now, I don't know that I need to use this right away. No. Whoop. Now when... Nope. No. Yeah. No, I didn't want to get the candelabras. So weird that that wall moves all over the place. I ate some monk meal. You know, it's a monastery. No. No, thank you. Oh, this push wall appears to be locked. Okay. Now where to? At least the wall took some of them out. I'm grateful for that. I guess I just have to wait for the timing of it all to wear off. Yes.
Outsider.
Okay. yes. What about here?
Please.
Oh, here we can. We
No.
can make
Don't
this
shoot.
happen
Please.
a little more smoothly. Gosh, I love that. Now this is what I was trying to get before, and I fell right on the death thing. Woo! Ah! There's so many of you! Oh, there's so many of you! Ah! Thank goodness I'm playing on easy. Okay, got that dude. Switch turned on, a wall moves. Got these switches turned on. And the walls are moving. And it doesn't look like that thing's shooting anymore, thank goodness. And what else? Maybe this way? Or was that where I came from? Oh! Person! Aha. Okay. Don't get squished by the wall. Don't get squished by the wall.
Die!
Okay. Person. I feel like there's probably more people. I could go that way, or I could go this way. People. Okay, switch turn on, another wall move. Probably not, but I did it! Give me that! No, I want it! Take me back there! No! No! It dropped me in fire and bad guys. Rude. There was the promise of help. I did find that. Does that turn off the fires, maybe? Now I can't get out? Oh. Yeah, I think it did turn off the fires. Alright. Oh, I guess I've been there already. Is this where I first came through? Oh, well, things are moving. Is that a... Okay. Oh, and another thing. Ah! Okay. Woo! Woo! There we go. I am so turned around. Too high. Next. Okay. I see you, fool. Something up there. I don't know that I can get that from here, though. Let's try going in there. Okay, now what? I could go that way, but I feel like that's not where I'm supposed to go. Maybe it is. Maybe it is. Alright. Oh, that was a place that took us. Okay, switch turned on. Something moves. Now can I go back from whence I came? Oh, yes, I can. Okay. Oh, I almost got over there. I thought maybe... Yeah. Aha! There it is. There it is. Now, where is... Then I got the keys. I got the iron key. This is the iron key door. No, I've been through here. Been through all these places. No, I haven't been here! Not been here. Or at least, if I have, dudes respawned. Okay. Whoa. Okay, we're probably not going through... Well, I guess I have to jump over that. Oh, how do I get in there? Give me that armor. Okay. I guess we're jumping over the spinning blades of death. Here we go. I see you. Nice. Woo! Level completed. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. All right, folks, that was Rise of the Triad, Ludicrous Edition, and it was awesome. Or I should say it was very ludicrous. But honestly, what a good time. At this point, I'm very excited because we've got something very lovely coming up in a moment. And that is an interview. We will be chatting with David Craddock, the writer, producer, and director of FPS First-Person Shooter, the definitive documentary.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Okay, now, David, you've been involved as a game industry writer for many years. Please tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, coming up on 20 years in January 2024. And I got started really by playing a lot of video games and reading a lot of video game magazines. Growing up, I knew that I either wanted to write video games. I've been programming off and on since I was 9 or 10, or write about them, reading issues of Nintendo Power, Game Pro, EGM, you name it. And in college, I ended up switching track to English and journalism and started writing pro bono for some video game websites, moved into contract writing. And then from there, my forte became writing about the making of games, interviewing people, talking about how games came together. And I did those as articles and now as books and now also as documentaries.
That is so cool. I mean, I think I can share a little bit with you for myself. Like when I was in school, I knew I wanted to work in video games, but I'm not really a professional level competitor. So thinking about other ways you can be involved, whether it be writing about games, I never thought about writing games, but writing about games. What kind of made you go on the path about writing how games are made as opposed to say like review or game editorial?
Yeah, I definitely did a lot of reviews and editorials. I worked the news beat for a while, but I would take those making of assignments whenever I could get them. And as a freelance writer, I ended up pitching them. And there was a lot of interest, I think, because, nowadays, if you pre-order digital or physical collector's editions, you might get behind the scenes art books or behind the scenes DVDs or Blu-rays. But those weren't as common in the 80s or 90s. In fact, they were pretty much non-existent, to the point where we read stories about a lot of old games being unavailable. A funny story I love to share is I was interviewing Frank Cifaldi, who co-founded the Video Game History Foundation, about Street Fighter for a book called Arcade Perfect that I wrote. And he said when he went to Capcom, and this is when Digital Eclipse was putting together their Street Fighter 35th anniversary collection, because Frank worked for Digital Eclipse as well. And he called Capcom up and said, hey, we'd love to open, your archives, go through and see if we can find any design documents, concept art, etc. for Street Fighter 2. And the Capcom people were like, we might have something lying around. And he was like, really? It's Street Fighter 2. It's one of the most important games of all time. And they said, yeah, we know that now. At the time, it was just the current project. You don't always think to save that stuff. And so I started interviewing Scott Miller, among other people, for books about first-person shooters, about Blizzard and Diablo, most recently Long Live Mortal Kombat, about Mortal Kombat, as you would expect, just because there weren't, a lot of those behind-the-scenes stories written down about that. And I love to write and tell stories, but I also like to try to preserve history before it's lost.
Yeah, and I imagine that being someone that wrote, and as you said, was programming games from the time you were 9 or 10, to also being able to do editorial, you're kind of uniquely suited for that you've seen both sides of it.
Yeah, I got pretty far in programming. I never did it professionally, but I have enough of a background in it to where I can talk to engineers about stuff and get into the nitty-gritty with them. Mm-hmm. And then translate that into human speak for books so that anyone and everyone can understand, like, oh, this is why it was a problem, right? Because first and foremost, you're writing about people. You have to get people invested in people first. And then once they're hooked on the characters, so to speak, whether they're fictional or real people, then you can get into here's how we did this and here are the algorithms and all of that fun stuff.
Right, exactly. All right, now, David, your latest project is a highly reviewed documentary called First Person Shooter, in which you interview over 40 luminaries, I think, who were involved in making super groundbreaking first person shooter games. to me about how this documentary came to be.
Yeah, so I wasn't there on the ground floor, actually. My
Really?
co-writer on this, yeah, surprisingly, I was there almost from the beginning, almost. So Robin Block is the CEO of Creator VC, which is our production company, and our executive producer. He actually grew up playing a lot of Halo specifically. And so after his company released this groundbreaking series of documentaries on 80s horror movies called In Search of Darkness, he started thinking about video games, but he's not really much of a gamer. So he wanted some subject matter experts to come on and kind of help write or advise, work in some capacity. So he read this great article on first-person shooters written by my co-writer and a great gaming historian named Richard Moss. And then Richard Moss wrote up a synopsis for the documentary that became First Person Shooter, talking about, here are the games we want to cover, here are the subjects we'd want to cover. But Richard said, I enjoy these games. I've written the article, which was massive, but I'm not what I would call an expert on them. You'd want to talk to David Craddock, because at that time I had written a book that's actually free to read right now on Shack News called Rocket Jump, Quake, and the Golden Age of First-Person Shooters, which is about the making of the Quake trilogy and how id Software influenced so many developers in the 90s. And I came on as an advisor. I had a pretty deep Rolodex by that time. I'd interviewed Scott Miller, John Romero, John Carmack, Sandy Peterson, kind of the who's who of companies like Apogee, id Software, Epic. And I started making suggestions about what games to cover, about who we should talk to. And in 2021, I think this was July, our Kickstarter launched, and Robin contacted me and said, hey, I'd like you to write this with Richard and co-direct it with my co-director, who is Christopher Stratton, who's a great video editor, guy with a lot of great vision. He and I have worked very closely on this. So we've been going for over 2 years now.
Awesome. And I mean, you mentioned you got to speak to kind of the who's who of the first person shooter genre at the time. Right. Was there anything that surprised you about them? I mean, the founding member, all 4 founding members of id Software, both Johns, Tom and Adrian, and everyone else that you had mentioned. Any surprises in those interviews?
A lot of the stories I'd heard before, but they were able to add more detail. And what really surprised me, and where Richard's expertise really came in handy, was in the era before Apogee and id Software. A lot of people credit Wolfenstein 3D as the first-person shooter. It was not. It was the first commercially successful FPS, and it really codified a lot of what the genre became. But the genre actually started in 1973 when a group of high school students made this game called Maze, also known as Maze War, and it had a lot of what would become FPS staples. I mean, you could do online deathmatch. There was a spectator mode. You could play against bots if there's no one around, but this game didn't really catch on because you had to have access to terminals connected to mainframes to play it. Oh, wow. So that's something I think that will really surprise people. You're going to learn about your Dooms, your Duke Nukems, your Unreals, your Half-Lives, but you're also going to go back to the 70s and kind of see you're going to wade around in the primordial ooze of the genre as well.
Is there any footage of that game or any way to play that game in a modern setting now?
So it's funny you should ask. There's really no way to play it in a modern setting now unless you use emulators. Maze War did catch on just enough that other companies released commercial versions of it, but usually only for computers like the Amiga and the Mac, which were never as big in the States as the PC, obviously. So what we had to do in the case of Maze War, Richard did this. He got an emulator of a mainframe running, got Maze War working on that, and obviously there's no one online, 50 some years later, so he got bots working. And then he would type in little taunts like "gotcha," which you can see in the documentary. So he and I did a lot of that. I played a lot of the games I know, most of the Apogee games, the id Software games, but also at certain pledge levels in our Kickstarter and Indiegogo, you could, if you backed at or above a certain level, you could also talk to us about what footage we needed and record yourself playing it and see it in the movie.
I love fun. That's such a cool backer reward.
Yeah, virtual stars. You could look, Ma, that's me doing the rocket jump. That's all that whole thing.
See, I told you my gaming would amount to something, Mom.
See, it's all research, all of it, the whole time.
Perfect. You had mentioned that our own Scott Miller is in the film. Is there anything you can tell us about him that maybe you didn't know before the interview?
Scott is just such an encyclopedia of knowledge because he wrote, he was a video game journalist before he launched Apogee, I believe, if I have the time right. So he understands the importance of this history. I've talked to him a lot. We even talked about, I think 7 years ago, I did an article on Vice about cheat codes, because if you think about it, cheat codes were really big like in the 8 and 16-bit days, but they're really not around anymore. So Scott and I talked about like, hey, what kind of happened to those? How did they start? And he was telling me, you know, cheat codes for us at Apogee started as debug codes. If we wanted to test the end of the game, we didn't want to play all through the game, so we'd just type in a debug code to jump to the end or wherever we wanted to go. And then we usually just either forgot about those codes or left them in there on purpose to generate buzz later. So Scott is just full of stories and knowledge about that. We talked about everything from the start of Duke Nukem, how he met John Romero, which is always a funny story about sending him letters under different names, to projects such as Prey, which started at Apogee and then went to Human Head Software. So I really enjoyed the interview with Scott. And I've talked to him a lot, actually. I talked to him several years ago for a book that I had to kind of put on ice, but it's going to happen now largely because of the success of FPS. So Scott and I will be talking again pretty soon.
All right, I'm going to take it back and give a timeout. You're going to have to tell me the story with John Romero and the letters, and then I also want to hear about the book. So letters first.
All right, so Scott started Apogee based on this idea of shareware. The idea is you create a game, you break it into 3 parts. Scott knew that the trilogy, 3 was the golden number. You would give the first part away for free, and then after you would exit the game, it would say, hey, if you like this, you can get more, just send me a check. And these days you actually had to write and mail checks. Like 8 to 12 weeks later, however long it took, you'd get your box or your Ziploc baggie or whatever it was in the mail. So Scott started Apogee based on that model, and he was constantly looking for other developers so he could publish their games and work with them. And he caught wind of John Romero because John is a very prolific game developer. He's one of the most prolific developers of all time. He's been publishing games since he was 16 years old. Scott had played some of his games, and he knew that John Romero and John Carmack at that time actually both worked at Softdisk on a disc called Gamer's Edge, where every 2 months this disc would come out and they'd have another game written by those two and Adrian Carmack and Tom Hall and Lane Roth, just a few collaborators. And Scott was like, oh, I want this John Romero to write a game for Apogee, but I know I can't contact him directly because Softdisk would consider that poaching. They'd never let his letters get to John. So instead of writing a letter saying, hey, John, my name's Scott, will you come work for me? He would pose as a fan, and he'd write his name as like Scott Moutier, or, just these different last names. And John actually posted all these on his wall. He's like, look at me, I have fans. Wow, I'm hot stuff. But then he reads an interview about Scott in a gaming magazine, and he notices Scott's address. I think it was just his home address at the time, maybe. And John's going, I know that address. Where do I know that? And then he looks at his wall, and he sees that all of these different Scotts have the same address. So he calls the guy. He's like, man, what the hell? Are you some kind of psycho stalker? And Scott's like, no. I did this because those letters are a Trojan horse. I had to talk to you and get you to write a game for me. And at that time, John Carmack and Tom Hall had written their Dangerous Dave and copyright infringement demo, which was John Romero's character Dave in a facsimile of the first level of Super Mario 3 with smooth scrolling, which had never been done on PC. You could play it on like Nintendo, but it didn't exist on the PC. And Scott saw that demo, was blown away, and said, I want you to write a game for Apogee. We'll do shareware. That's where Commander Keen came from, and then Wolfenstein 3D from there, and the rest is history.
That's amazing. Now, you mentioned that you and Scott are working on a book together, yes?
Yes, I've been interviewing from a book off and on. It started about one of Apogee's more infamous games that was later released by another company. And then I had to table it a bit because I wasn't sure exactly where I wanted to take it. But I'm working on a book about first-person shooters, including that game. So I'm going to be circling back to Scott and talking to him more about that probably later this year or early next.
That's super exciting. Thank you for sharing that tidbit with us.
Absolutely.
Just kind of speaking about the FPS genre in broad terms, what do you think makes FPSs so enduring and popular?
I think that's a great question. And I think there are several reasons. First of all, a lot of early shooters, we call them the Doom clones because Doom was just so prolific. they told great stories without having to use a lot of text or cinematics, which was born of necessity, because back in the early 90s there really weren't many cinematics to speak of, right? So if you think about the opening room of Doom, you start with this like heavy metal music pounding, there's this big room, and you see one of your fellow Marines lying dead, and you know that whatever it is killed this Marine, this big badass Marine, is out for you too, but where is it? And it's like, yeah, exactly. So it's like this it's great environmental storing, what they call it in the industry now, right? And it's very accessible. It's like anyone can understand that. You don't have to wade through a big complicated story like you do in an RPG. Secondly, I think people love fast action games. Before first-person shooters dominated sales charts, a lot of the best-selling games were point-and-click adventures, which were fun, but not everyone can get into those because they're slower, a little bit more cerebral. FPS games are cerebral too, but in a very different way. It's a different type of strategy, and I think it's definitely more mainstream. And then third, especially in the PC, FPS games have always been tech showpieces. When you get a brand new gaming computer tricked out, the first thing you do is you buy the latest and greatest FPS, because you know that hot new engine, whether it's Doom Eternal, whatever it happens to be, is really going to show off your PC specs. You get all the, as high a frame rate as possible, SSD for virtually no loading, all that stuff. So that's still true today. Whenever someone buys a new PC, get the latest and greatest FPS to really put it through its paces.
Totally agree with you. I like to do PC builds, and when I test them, I typically do test them on hardcore FPSs.
There you go. You go into the settings, hit that maximum or ultra settings, and see what the beast can do, right?
Absolutely. Now, in the past few years, I feel like we've seen a resurgence of retro FPSs. Why do you think retro FPSs have caught on so much in the last few years?
That's another great question. I think it's because for a long time, games were getting more and more mainstream, to the point where it kind of crescendoed, I think, with games, military shooters like Call of Duty and Battlefield, which are very accessible because not everyone, first of all, not everyone had gaming PCs in the 90s, because it's hard to think about, but even a mid-range PC back then was like $2,500 to $3,000.
Yeah. But
you could pay $150 for a Super Nintendo, right? But you weren't getting as great of an experience as you would on a PC. Fast forward to like 2005, Xbox 360 wasn't on the same level of the PC, but it was more or less comparable. And you could have a really great high definition experience with surround sound in your living room, games like Call of Duty. And as those games sold more and more and more, I think a lot of the arena shooters, the Doom clones, they just kind of fell by the wayside because they didn't quite have the same reach that Call of Duty did. And a lot of that is really just, I think if military shooters would have come around first, Doom clones and arena shooters would have taken off, because with every year, more and more people get into gaming. So by 2005, billions of people play video games. Obviously, they're all going to kind of gravitate to one of the big things, right?
Right.
And we just saw, it got to the point, I think, where a lot of companies, like even Capcom, went really heavy on militaristic themes, bombastic showpieces with games like Resident Evil, which started as like really creepy, horror-driven survival games, and now all of a sudden you're just like shooting everything and it feels like Call of Duty. Like, what happened there? And I think that people eventually got burned out on that. You could see that Call of Duty still sells really well, but not like it did 10, 12 years ago. And then there was this room where there's this room for more in the room. There was suddenly more air to breathe, more of gaming to go around. And I think nostalgia plays a big part of it, but also it's like Dave Oshry says in FPS Documentary, great game design does not age. It just doesn't go out of style. So I think sometimes you need a break from something to appreciate it more. I think there'll be a resurgence of military shooters too, but they're still so prolific that it won't come around for a while.
Yeah, it's all super cyclical, right? Like, I feel like you hit a certain age when you yearn for that nostalgia of the games you played back when too. And I know I've heard a lot of people talk about Dave Oshry and the author of Dusk, David Zeminski, probably being a part of kicking off the retro FPS resurgence. I don't know if you played Dusk, David, but if you did, what is it about that game that you think really stands out?
I like that it was really evocative of Quake specifically. I think a lot of retro shooters at first were evocative of Doom and Duke Nukem 3D, especially, when you have chatty protagonists, you think of Duke because he was the first FPS protagonist to really have anything resembling a personality. Whereas Dusk reminded me of Quake. The polygonal graphics were kind of ugly, but in an endearing way, in a way that felt intentional and very purposeful. And I love the feel of that game. It feels so silky smooth to play. It feels like a hybrid of Doom and Quake in terms of the movement. And that's the game that really, that's why it really resonated with me. Coupled with its atmosphere, Quake was really kind of dank and gritty, and Dusk had that same feel, especially the first episode. I love the farm environments because you can just almost feel the dirt and the grime on the walls and the straw-covered floors and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's a great time. If anyone in chat has not played Dusk, highly encourage you to, although I would imagine a lot of people in this chat probably have. David, do you foresee a sequel to your FPS documentary, maybe in like 10 or 20 years?
Oh, boy, it feels like it'd take that long to make, because this one, was 4.5 hours, and it's been 2+ years. I think probably a sequel is in the works. But Robin has been asking me about it. I'm like, I can't even talk about it right now because today, we're 1 month out from the documentary releasing, and it's almost like as game developers, I'm sure Scott has come across this. He's talking about the next game coming out, and people are already like, "Hey, is there a sequel?" And he's like, "Whoa. Like, well, let's get through this one. Yeah, let's get through this one first." But I think we would really like to do one. We would just kind of think about where we would go from here, since this documentary, again, 4.5 hours, we cover a lot of ground, but there's still a lot we didn't get to, so we'd have to think about it.
There's so much to cover. And David, I believe you recently announced that you're working with John Romero on his unannounced FPS game as a writer.
Yes.
Are you moving to Ireland to work at Romero's studio?
I'm not. So that's a funny story. John and Brenda are great. I love them both. They've been after me to work with them for almost a year now. And it's very flattering to be headhunted by the same people you grew up reading about, right? Like, that's really cool. I'm a contractor. I haven't been a full-time anything for years just because I'm a writer. I love my wanderlust. I love to be able to just wake up every morning and decide what I'm going to do. So I'm not moving to Ireland, but they have made the offer. And so we'll see what the future holds.
So you'll still be writing game industry books like you've been doing?
Yes, I have. Actually, in January and February of this year, I signed 3 publishing contracts. So not slowing down there anytime soon. Already talking about documentaries other than those related to FPS as well. So a lot of stuff in the works.
That's very exciting to hear. Do you think that we will one day see a book from Scott Miller telling the story of Apogee in 3D Realms?
I think we really need to. Scott is a great writer. I read a lot of his magazine articles, his research, like even years ago. And he and George Broussard wrote a book about arcade game strategy. So Scott has the writing chops to do this. I would love to read his story. I'd love to be an early reader just because I love to be as immersed in gaming culture and stories as I can, especially, back then when Scott got started. He set a lot of templates for stuff. No one was doing what he was doing. He had to kind of make it all up as he went along. And I love stories like that. I think there's stories that anyone, not just gamers, can identify with, someone having a dream and chasing it to make it come true.
Yeah, and you'd hope that, books like you write and any books like that would maybe bring more people into the gaming ecosystem.
Definitely, because I think there are a lot of lessons that people like Scott can teach that will never go out of style. Technology has changed, but a lot of the game design principles that made, Scott's Kingdom of Kraus games and Duke Nukem and other Apogee games a hit, those design principles are still important now more than ever, because as we talked about earlier, we're seeing this cycle back to retro. But you can't just slap a bunch of pixels on something and hope it sells well, right? You have to have good game design there. So, and Scott knows that.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite non-FPS Apogee title by any chance?
Yes, Crystal Caves. I believe George Broussard worked on that one. That was when he and Scott got involved and were publishing this game together. But I really, really enjoyed this idea of, it started in the hub world and you could go to different caves and solve the puzzles there. A lot of platforming, run around collecting crystals. That was super fun. I also liked Monster Bash. Yeah, I played a ton of Apogee games as a kid. I had those shareware discs that had 50 game shareware games on them. And as a kid, I couldn't get my mom to cut checks for all of them, but I'd play those shareware games over and over and over again. It was so much fun.
Back in the day when we had very few games and just played them forever and ever and ever, because that's what you had.
That's what you had. It's like when my mom would go to the video store. She's like, you can rent one game. And even if that game sucked, which most of the time it did, that was the choice I made, Trisha. I had to make it work. I had to enjoy it all weekend. I made it work.
I was in the same boat as you, David, so I totally get it.
You got to embrace your choice. You got to live with it.
Yep. Even if it's a super broken game,
yeah.
You will play it until you can play it no more.
That's right.
David, thank you so much for joining me today. Are there any final words you'd like to leave our viewers with before we say goodbye to you?
Yeah, depending on when you're able to catch this, go to fpsdoc.com. If you miss our pre-order sale, I can tell you that it will more than likely be available for general sale and quite soon, and that's where you'll want to watch. fpsdoc.com and at fpsdoc on Twitter, X, whatever it's called this week.
Yeah, exactly. All right, David, cannot wait to check it out. Thank you so much for sharing your valuable time with us today, and hopefully we'll see you back on stream again soon.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be involved with Apogee in any way, so thanks so much for having me on.
You're the best. Oh man, that was awesome. Again, thank you, David, for being part of the stream today. Folks, that's all we have time for, unfortunately, for today's Apogee live stream. We will be back here next week at the same time, same place. I would be honored if you would join us again next week. Next week, our guest is Dave Oshry, one of the executive producers and founder of New Blood Interactive, who helped create Rise of the Triad Ludicrous Edition. So you're definitely gonna want to be here for that. As always, we'll probably have other little surprises in store, and I would tell you about them, but then they wouldn't be surprises. All right, everyone, follow us on all of the socials and Discord. You'll see all of those links, etc. in chat, and I will see you next time. Bye, everyone.
It was a spectacle you could watch as a player. When we were making Wolfenstein, we put in a no-clip mode so we could get through. We didn't have to use keys, so we could just test rooms and stuff. John and I were going through the rooms as if we were, immortal creatures. Ooh, I look down on these four beings, And so that kind of inside joke I turned into God mode.
It was a blast to see the enemies run when they realized that you had the hand of God out.
I thought, if we have God mode, what's the opposite of that? Dog mode. So dog mode where you go down and you just bite people to death and so on.
It's so much fun. Yeah, Rise of the Triad it just took it to another level for me.
I got the opportunity to work on Rise of the Triad 20 years later. It was a little kid's dream come true, and I'm still working on Rise of the Triad. I love Rot forever, man.
The characters were iconic, the weapons were iconic, and it was just a lot of fun.
All those things, that was all Tom, and it was great.
I love how crazy it is, and it is a nuts game. Tons of people write me every week just like, oh yeah, I played Rise of the Triad again. And my nephew loves it, so that's all that really matters.
Come get some.